Hello civil engineers, I welcome you all once again to this webinar series on civil engineering excellence, deviation and variation in contract। ये बहुत ही कॉमन है, तो दोस्तों आज के वीडियो में हम लोग इसी के ऊपर बात करेंगे। Deviation and variation in contract. So let us understand first what is deviation, what is variation. See, deviation means whatever defined scope of work is given in a particular contract, and if we are changing that scope of work from its original point of view, so that is called deviation in the contract. And as a result of deviation, there will be variation in various types of quantities if we talk about the item rate contract. But this deviation, or you can say variation, is very common in all types of contract, whether it is civil, it is mechanical, electrical, air conditioning, or any type of contract. Because what happens is, when you freeze the scope of work, that time there will be certain drawings available based on certain assumptions, based on the user's drawing, user's requirement, you finalize the scope of work. But during execution, what happens? There are many chances of slight changes. So first of all, if we talk about the civil contract, the very first and foremost change is possible during the course of excavation. The moment you start excavating the soil, you are not very sure about the total strata, because based on the bore log or based on the previous experience or trial pit details, we take the quantities approximately. But what happens during execution, this quantity may vary. You might have kept some quantity for some particular item. So for example, soft rock, hard rock, you are keeping some quantities based on your calculations, but in actual field it may vary. So this is the first variation, start there itself. So there are all chances of variation in any type of contract. So let us talk about the first, what are the limits set for any contract in the deviation. So particularly in government contract, if we talk, so normally overall deviation in amount, if we see, so that is about 30% you can deviate from the original scope of work, or with amount also. Now if we go for the individual items, so excavation item is exception. There normally what we keep is the 100% variation is to be kept, because there are all chances things may vary, and if you keep the quantity very minimum, there again dispute will start. So in civil contract, for excavation item, 100% variation is allowed. But for all other items other than excavation, 30% variation is allowed in individual items. So for example, concrete quantity, if it is 1000 cubic meter, so 1000 cubic meter plus 30% of that much only you can vary. If the quantities are varying more than that, then the agency has to be compensated as per the market rate, because he has quoted the rate for that particular quantity. Now comes the effect of this variation or deviation. It leads to the creation of extra items and substituted item. Now what is the extra item? Suppose when you finalize the scope of work, you have taken certain things in your account. Suppose all of a sudden a new requirement has come which is not there a part of original item, but you have to execute that item. So that becomes an extra item. So the extra item you may execute, you may not execute, but sometimes situation creates like that, unless you do that extra item, you cannot proceed with the further work. So that extra item is called contingent to the original work, and such extra items are bound to be carried out. Now engineer in charge in that as per CPWD provisions is empowered how to deal with extra item, how to deal with substituted item, and these all provisions are covered under class 12 of section 3 of conditions of contract. So the provisions you can go through that. For example, how this contingent to main work, for example, this sunken waterproofing in your toilet room, just one example I am giving. Now that waterproofing item you might have missed in the original scope of work. Now during execution of work, when you come to know, now this item, unless this sunken floor waterproofing is executed, you cannot proceed with the further work. So this item becomes the part of the contingent to the original work. So this you are compulsorily you have to carry out these items. Other extra items you may carry out, or you may go into the separate contract. Now what is substituted item? Now substitute item is when you partly you deviate from the scope of work. For example, public health items in your contract. You might have taken the provision for ESCO make fittings, bib tap and bib cock. I will provide ESCO make. Now during execution, you are changing it to suppose Jaguar make or some other make. So there will be rate difference in the item, and you want other item. So this is called substitution of item. So partly you have to substitute. So this is called substitute item. Similarly, for example, floor tiles. You might have taken 600 mm by 600 mm vitrified tile of some particular make. I will provide in my rooms. During execution or due to user's requirement, now you need to provide jointless tile of 1200 mm by 1200 mm or something changing. So this is called substitution of item. So what you have to do, you have to make a new rate for the substituted item and deduct the original scope of work. So these items are to be substituted according to the market rate. Now how do we avoid? See why we should avoid, because what happens is the moment you enter into extra item, substituted item, first of all, time, whatever you provide in the original contract, time will change. So you have to provide the necessary extension of time. The moment you provide extension of time, then question of escalation comes. Though this escalation is not applicable on extra item, substituted item, but complication in the contract are bound to come. So for my guidance or my advice to the site engineers is, as far as possible, first of all, our scope of work should be well defined and estimate should be as accurate as possible. So chances of making this extra item or substituted item will be very less. If at all it comes, one way is you execute in the existing contract. Other way is, simple way is, you go for a separate contract and get it executed through some other agency. So no change in the original scope of work, and then you are free with all these botherations. So as per the site condition, you have to take a call on this, and thinkfully you have to decide whether to carry out or not to carry out, seeing the overall conditions. So this is all about a brief about deviation and variation limits in our contract. So I hope friends, you must have liked this video. If you are liking the videos, प्लीज़ लाइक इट, शेयर इट विथ योर फ्रेंड्स. नेक्स्ट वीडियो में हम लोग बात करेंगे आर्बिट्रेशन के बारे में. तो मिलते हैं दोस्तों नेक्स्ट वीडियो में. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग. थैंक यू.